to bring us back to ISO real quick, ISO 20022. Um, there's a lot of things coming up with as far as the adoption roadmap, as far as these technologies are concerned. What are some things specifically in 2022 that us as retail investors should be looking out for as far as the adoption of these assets?
Okay, so the number one thing, this is the number one thing everybody should be ready for, and it can spring up at any time. That's the funny thing, is CBDC, central bank digital currency. That is the
Mhm.
number one thing that should be on everyone's mind. That right there is going to cause the big bang of whatever, basically the utility bull run everybody's anticipating. That's going to basically be the catalyst for it, because this allows anybody from the comfort of their own bank account, presumably, to be able to have access to all these different crypto networks. And what's going to end up happening is you'll end up having a interledger CBDC where it won't just be one CBDC. It'll be a CBDC that transcends multiple networks. So it'll be like a dollar, where if you took a dollar payment on one network, that same dollar payment can make a dollar payment on another network. You see what I mean? That's going to be the CBDC, and that's saying it
Yes.
has to be. It's the most logical conclusion for a CBDC that allows you for the broadest inclusion for the technologies that use it, while at the same time allow for the ease of use for the participants that are using it without them having to think about it. You see, this is where the whole derivatives of all these different assets come into place. Because if you're able to make a delivery to if you're able to make delivery to a to either a contract or an application on another network with a native asset, like I said, you're to make delivery of $10 to the XRP network from an application on the XDC network without the person on the XDC network or the XRP network thinking about them transgressing each other's networks. What you'll end up
Mhm.
having is, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I think the dollar would be the first one to do this, because if the dollar does it, it'll basically gain what's it called? It'll gain a monopoly on Because that's the thing, you'll end up having liquidity in dollars for multiple networks, and you'll end up having a monopoly on on an interledger stablecoin, I guess you could say.
So, so you think that the dollar could be the first one to do this?
Well, it's the thing. It's not really the dollar. Like, they call it the dollar. Like,
Mhm.
and other countries will do this too. But that's the thing. I think at the end of the day, it'll be on multiple networks, so it'll be the dollar, of course. But the biggest thing is, I think XRP may be the highest liquid network for all of these. That's the thing that allows you to do that. You can take a dollar token on XDC, make a payment from XDC into XRP into another network token, and then onto that network to do a delivery. It would actually be more of a wrapped USDC on XDC delivers or makes a delivery to the XRP network, which would take a
Yeah.
wrapped X, take a wrap. Yeah, so it would just take a series of wrapped tokens. That's the thing. That's the whole point. Because now, like I said, one person can make the idea with that too would be you'll start getting interfaces to where you can have one smart contract execute functions of another smart contract on another network by using this interledger USD. And it's not
Mhm.
really an interledger USD. It's most likely going to be some sort of what's it called? The way I like to put it is, because there's a government version, and then there's like a decentralized version of this. The government version of this is essentially a decentralized exchange for stable coins, but the stable coin's just the US dollar paired up with every network that it's on. But you could
Mhm.
also do this too private by having a decentralized exchange for stable coins, and essentially do the same thing. The difference is the government version allows for maximum liquidity for US dollars into so imagine a smart contract on every network that basically reallocates the exchange of dollar coins on those networks. So it'll be almost like a segue. But I think that's what's going to end up happening, because that'll allow you to have a monopoly on the payment apparatus for people to be able to make exchanges. Plus, if you made everybody use the US dollars too, what you can end up doing is you can end up keeping track of every account that holds that USD coin, that interledger USD coin. You see what I mean? And then use that as a mechanism to be able to, taxes and all that crap.
Oh man, this is again. I'm gonna repeat it, man. This is why it's so valuable that you're here, because this is one of these things that people don't can't even wrap their minds around yet. It's that, and I've actually said this too. Is that they say, oh, CBDCs,
They're 3 years away. They're years away. Oh, they're just researching now and developing now. And I'm like, oh no, they're not. They've been doing all this for a long time, for a long, long, long
Probably are
time.
like that's the thing. I've actually I've actually looked into some of these documents from the Federal Reserve, and they've had plans for a digital dollar. Well, they've had plans for a digital dollar dating back to the 80s, but they've had modern plans to do something right now dating all the way back to like 2011, 2012. And even in documents in 2013, 2014, they've listed Ripple and JP Morgan as
Hmm.
two potential candidates for like the digital dollar. And
Hmm.
and it's just one of those things. It's just like this isn't new. Like it's not like all of a sudden they're like, all right, guys, we're all moving to no. Like this isn't new. Like this is just part of like, and it's not like this isn't like a grand conspiracy. Like these things take time. The government's slow. So to think that all of a sudden things that happen now are plans that are just getting around to now because of how slow these processes are. You see?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like people that haven't seen the documentation, they're like, it can't just happen right away. They need to know that it hasn't happened right away. It's been in development for a decade plus. So that's powerful that you said that, and I genuinely
One
do
thing.
believe that I and my bad, Quincy, I genuinely do believe that at any given moment, something could be the catalyst where every government says, all right, now it's time to really get the pedal to the metal, because we're in dangerous times.
Yeah, that's where ISO is really interesting because ISO is a global effort, and the United States is the last country, at least one of the last major countries, to get on board. Everybody else has gotten on board since 2017. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things where like we're going like, oh yeah, it's years away. No, we're the slow ones. The rest of the world is already like on board with what we're saying is years away. You see,
Yeah.
like
And and how much of that do you think is because of the fact that the US does hold the reserve currency status? I think that's a big part of it.
yeah, I think there's actually a lot of politics in that because if you want, this is kind of funny. If you want a little bit of my own speculation on some of this, that's kind of funny.
Let's do it.
Um, it, yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of politics on the dollar being the reserve currency, and oh crap, I forgot what the conundrum was called. Um,
The
there
Triffin dilemma.
there's a
Triffin dilemma.
what was that?
Triffin
Wait,
dilemma.
say that again. Yeah, the Triffin dilemma. There you go. Where economic policy that's good for us isn't good for the rest of the world, and economic policy that's good for the rest of the world isn't good for us. And
Yes.
this is where obviously the argument for decentralized networks come into play because then you don't have that dilemma anymore. But see, here's the thing: the current crown for the global reserve currency is the U.S. dollar. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things where it's like just to move over into another anything system, whatever, would take a lot of work and most likely participation on the U.S. government's part. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think the U.S. has too much power and too much leverage to where, like, I hate to say it like this, but like I think you may end up seeing a almost like a crisis, and instead
Mhm.
of solving the crisis, they may just default on the dollar and tell everyone that holds bonds in U.S. dollars everywhere else in the world to go screw off. Your dollars aren't worth anything. Institute
Mhm.
a new digital dollar. If you really want to get really speculative too, you can also add in they'll commandeer the escrow for XRP and use that as liquidity, set liquidity, and then be able to pay off their debts that they otherwise would have paid back in dollars in a decentralized currency, still being able to maintain their dollar. That's like so. Imagine this. That's what it is. So in domestically, everyone in the United States wouldn't notice a single thing. And we would probably go into an economic boom because all of our debts would be waived. But if you held US dollars or bonds elsewhere, you would either have nothing or you get redeemed for the XRP, which is the decentralized currency, which is
Mhm.
essentially the step down of, okay, we're not kings anymore, but we just wiped away like a $20 trillion debt. You see? Like,
Yeah, and it's one of those overarching things that's happening in the background that people pay attention to, but they really don't know what it means. It's like there's $30 trillion in debt. The America's a third world country wearing a Gucci belt, and we are not fly. All right, we are completely not. We're not doing it right. We're not doing it right now, and it's one of those things where me personally, when I knew that there was going to be a crisis like this 10 years ago. I've been studying for 10 years for this specific moment in history. Now, I could have never guessed that it was going to be COVID. That was going to be the pin that popped the banking system that made everything them hyperinflate the currency and bring us to 0% rates and all this stuff. But holy hell, this is very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's the other reason why they're that's like I said, why why worry about inflating the currency if you know it's going to be worthless anyway? Like you see, like, and I think people sort of already come to this, like, yeah, well, we're gonna have this crash, blah blah. I actually don't think we're gonna have this huge, horrible crash. Actually, I think we'll have like a obviously like sort of an initial crash, but not like a oh, it's gonna be like worse than the Great
No,
Depression. Because like I said, if we're able
they,
to maintain our purchasing power by screwing off the rest of the world by saying, yeah, your money's not worth anything, and
mhm,
and we just keep the purchasing power. Like
mhm.
that's like no, the rest of the world would have a problem. So all those countries where their currencies paired to the dollar would almost crash to zero if something didn't intervene. And
Yeah.
like,
That's what it is. There needs to be government intervention and policy at play. I mean, and we've been seeing the G7 and the G20 and all these different nations that are essential making all these trade deals and things like that. So it's not like they're ready. They know exactly what's going to happen. And essentially my bet in crypto over the past like 5 years was just a hedge against the US and the dollar. That's what it is. Like you have to hedge against the fiat system, and if you're not doing that, and if you're in this regular system, it's going to be very very bad for you. You know, you need to be accumulating assets, whether you trust crypto or not. Go into other physical assets, but it needs to be something that's not, you know, these paper assets, because it's going to get frightening very fast.
yeah, I actually, this is kind of crazy because I had a whole conversation about this with some of my finance friends,
Mhm.
and it's sort of like it's weird to think about it, but we actually have this propaganda like in our current system where people tell you, oh, the smart thing to do with your money is to go put it in the bank. But what you're really doing is you're giving custody of your like purchasing power for somebody else to go take risk with and get rich. And if something
Yes.
bad happens, they hold you at gunpoint and say, oh yeah, you better bail us out, or the livelihood of these people's money we lost is at stake. And it's like
Yeah.
it's like it's a system you want to be in a system where you get nothing back and all of your money gets gambled away. And if it's fine, cool, you get an economic boom that you don't get the benefit from, and you get
Yes.
basically worthless money that loses its value over time. And like, and that's something people tell you all the time: put your money. And that's the next thing they'll say is, "Oh, if you don't put your money in the bank, go buy bonds." And it's like, "Oh yeah, I want to go buy a 10-year 2% like treasury bond." Thank you
Mhm.
on that. Like, it's all. I don't like to say it like that, but it really is all propaganda to
Yes.
reinforce essentially the bankers, because those are the
Yes.
only ones who benefit. Do you benefit when you got $20,000? Do you benefit at all by just putting it in the bank account? You're better
Yes.
off just buying gold and just leaving it in a suitcase under your bed. Like,
Yes. And that's exactly the case, man. That's exactly the case. I mean, I can take this to 18 different places right now, but let me try and zone into where a question that I've long been pondering, and I'm just curious to see what you think about this possibility, because you went into the escrow a little bit. I genuinely believe that's a big reason um, Ripple's getting sued at all. What do you think will happen with that? I know you gave one scenario, but what do you think will happen with the escrow? And two, do you think it's possible that XRP could be deemed an SDR in one way, shape, or form? The only reason I ask is because this year in July, um, there is going to be an SDR revaluation, and I've long been looking at that as a possible um, catalyst for some massive change. So I'm curious to see your opinion on that.
yeah. So I'll go with the escrow first because I've got two really dynamic takes in terms of the
Dynamic.
escrow and then
I like it.
so yeah, because yeah. So in terms of the escrow, so here's the dig with the escrow. And people don't think about this, but this is what I think is going to happen. Just like what I stated earlier with that example of how like startups that make no money that get like a couple $100 million in investment are now worth billions of dollars for an application that barely even works. Well, the escrow is going to do the exact same thing in terms of valuation for XRP. But here's the thing: I think what's going to end up happening is, yeah, there's going to be a huge a huge debate over the escrow. I think for two main reasons. One, it's basically going to come into the topic of like, what is money, like what is value, and essentially like what does that mean? Because there's essentially the possibility that if XRP reaches a certain price, that Ripple, or essentially whoever you want to say is the arbiter of that escrow, because I see people say a bunch of different things about the escrow, but whoever you want to say is the arbiter of that escrow can be considered the richest entity on the planet at a certain price. And that's on the liquidity. And that's I don't think any government entity ever would ever let that happen, unless they were going to be the custodians of it. And then they would say, if you wanted your purchasing power, you can withdraw it from us like a bank, and basically do their own bullshit. But that's the thing. Here's the thing with that. So I do believe there is going to be something in terms of commandeering the escrow, partially for a common good. But and I think they're going to do some work that they may even do an OTC deal with like Ripple and just sell it to Ripple or whatever. I don't know, like, or sell it or buy it from Ripple or whatever. I don't know. But I think the thing that's going to end up happening is like I stated before, I think there's going to be a loss in confidence in the dollar. And the best way to essentially regain, not really confidence in the dollar, but to essentially like alleviate the loss in confidence in the dollar, is to say, hey, look, we're going to step down from being the world reserve currency. We're for the purchasing power that was lost by the dollar you lost faith in. We'll give you that same purchasing power in terms of XRP for liquidity's sake. And they wouldn't give just all of it away, just be billions upon billions of it. But the main thing is it would set a base. And that's if you want to say with XRP. You could also say, because this goes into the SDR, is it may just be a series of ISO assets in general. And the SDR may be a basket of ISO assets in general. It may even be its own particular type of asset. It may be its own, like I said, how the US dollar may become an interledger currency. You may see an interledger asset be the SDR for liquidity's sake into different, you see what I mean? It could be the same sort of dig, just structured however they want to do it. And it could be on the XRP ledger very well. But yeah, in terms of the escrow, I do think it will be commandeered. I do think it will be price set based off of liquidity, off of the initial issuance. Because let's say they commandeer 50 billion of the escrow, and they want to issue $20 trillion or $30 trillion worth of credit. That's actually how this works. It's not that they're paying back assets; they're paying back credit. So all the money they print, all the money they borrowed, you're essentially paying that back with purchasing power that's almost created just as fabricated as the money they printed. But what you're doing is you're issuing a new medium of purchasing power. That's what you're doing. And that's the thing, actually, what you're really doing is you're cashing in the value of the already spent credit, and you're making it real with the capital of the newly revalued asset. That would be XRP in this example. So that's the thing, that like, the reason why I think this will happen is if there was a loss in faith of the dollar and they did this, they could save the dollar, save the economy, basically not have to pay off any of their debts, and basically just take stolen XRP and then give it to the rest of the world so they don't have to owe the money anymore, and then steep down as the world reserve currency. And that's the thing.
That sounds about right.
People might go, well, what's the point of that? That means our government gets to walk away from all of their responsibility. If you know this too, then you have every incentive to print as much money as possible if you're just going to do this. Because you can just walk away from all your responsibilities, go into an economic boom, because now, it's almost like a price reset in terms of the debt. And that's the thing. They could go even further. They could cancel out not only government debt, but all the domestic debt too, by being able to issue that same XRP domestically to all these different companies or different entities that may have debt in the United States. Hell, even to you may even see something like student loans, where you get like a cash out, blast out, whatever. You may even see that, where people's like student loans or car loans or whatever are literally that's going to be just as printed as any other money, but you're just reevaluating the purchasing power with a new asset. So it's like the value is already there. You're just moving it into a new medium. You see what I mean? But that's the thing, though. The person who gets to move it gets the most value. So we get to cancel out all of our debts, while everybody else in the world just gets their purchasing power back off of because the original currency, the dollar, would have had that faith loss essentially. Now, what this means too, if we're dealing with the dollar domestically, the dollar could lose faith globally, and we could still see prices almost set here and almost managed here domestically because of that. Because real prices would be in XRP, and then US dollar prices would be what we see. You see what I mean? But the actual purchasing power price would probably be valued in a global currency at that point.
That was
But that's essentially how you save the economy. And that's like, it's not really saving the economy. It's mostly just like, how do you get out of all of your debts without having to actually like create purchasing power? And that's the thing, you're not.
Oh.
It's really weird to look at it because you're converting debt. You're converting debt into purchasing power in a new asset medium. You see what I mean? That's what I mean by it.
It's absurd, bro. It's absurd. But what I'll say is that this is fantasy economics at its finest, and I often say this.
It's called modern monetary theory. They teach it in schools, like, but it basically is just monopoly economics. It's just monopoly money. Like, yeah, like, inflation doesn't exist. Freaking, we can do whatever we want. Yeah, the economy, like, it's kind of crazy too, because you want to know something actually really interesting? Before everything kind of blew up, during COVID, I was actually putting together a small application that was going to evaluate the different government statistics for unemployment, for like just a bunch of stuff in terms of being able to create like a job evaluation app. I found out all those statistics were straight up fake, because you would have contradicting statistics too. It's kind of hilarious. I found one where in this economy, modern monetary theory, the unemployment rate is like going down to like 2%, but at the time the unemployment filings were like 10x all-time highs.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. It's really incredible.